Hi, I'm Renee Gellerman, the President and CEO of United Way Quad Cities. I'm joined here today by the leaders of United Way's Education Council and the superintendents representing the school districts in Scott and Rock Island counties. There's nothing more complicated that we do as a civilization than education. We entrust our teachers with the very most important job, educating our kids. They're expected to turn eager minds into ambitious and successful young people in our society. And it's a difficult job to do without love and support. The goal of our next 15-minute conversation is to humanize our classrooms and to identify ways that we as individuals, institutions, and communities can support our students and show that we value our teachers. To change the trajectory of a generation and to compete both today and the future for talent and jobs, we must prioritize education. Because education is the very best pathway out of poverty, and it's the way that most gain the skills and confidence to do just that. Let's get started. So almost overnight, the education system shifted because of the pandemic. It's still evolving, and we're seeing challenges every day. How are the teachers coping, Michelle? What challenges are they facing?
That's a great question, Renee. Thank you. As you said, almost overnight, the lights went off and they came back on and we found ourselves in a new world. I think just teachers are finding different ways to cope. They are finding themselves, teachers naturally are perfectionists, right? They want to do the absolute best for all of the students in their classroom. And as we've come out of the pandemic, or coming out of the pandemic, and are back in school full time and looking at data on a regular basis, there are those gaps that exist for students. And so I think we stress in our district the professional learning community process. So where you're working with your grade level teams and your site teams to really dig in and identify socially, emotionally, and behaviorally and academically what students need. So I think that support of your peers helps as administrators, trying to make sure we give them time and the resources they need to just take any additional stresses off of them. I know it's hard, and teachers have said, I'm not sure that I can continue this for a sustained period of time, but just wrapping around them, coming around them, finding ways to support them individually, asking them what they need individually to help them be successful. But at the end of the day, when that light bulb comes on for a student, or they see a gain in a student that they've been trying for so long, I think that's where they find true motivation. Teaching is a calling. And so when they see the light bulbs come on and the students light up and get excited because they've accomplished something they didn't think they could, that helps keep them grounded and wanting to come back for more.
Yeah, I think about my third grade teacher all the time. She's the first person I ever met that had gone to college and saw so much hope in me and potential. And so I can relate to that. And, I'm so thankful for the work of our teachers. Everyone seems to have an opinion about what's happening in the classroom. And I'm just curious, how do you and your teachers cope with the public pressure of almost being expected to push on the brakes and the accelerator at the same time? How do you cope with planning and the expectations of the community, Joe?
The teaching has always been a stressful profession, and so that was nothing new. COVID obviously has added a lot more to that. Our teachers really look to see how they meet all students' needs. We don't teach to the middle anymore. And so when you look at the new COVID environment we're in, the gaps are much bigger because we have students that come and go out of all of our districts. And so that means you have kids today that last year might have been online full-time, might have been homeschooled, might have been face-to-face. And so each one of them have brought a different experience into that classroom. And so for us as a district and all of our districts, it's about time. We need to give the gift of time to our teachers to prepare to meet all students' needs. An elementary teacher, for example, may have had 2 or 3 reading groups in their class a year ago. Now they might have 5 or 6 different reading groups because it has expanded the gaps between kids. And so what we need to be able to do for our staff is give them the time. We need our parents to be patient. Because when there is more gaps and there are more needs for students to be met, that means there's less time for other things. And so to have patience for our staff, to have patience for our school districts in order to meet the needs of what our current students need is something we could ask from our parents and our public.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Kristen, what are the things that have happened or that you've learned that you think are positive outcomes from the COVID situation?
Yeah, that's a great question because any good circumstance or anything good or bad that comes out of this, you'd hope that there would be something, any situation you have in your life, we all hope that something good comes out of it, like a learning lesson. But for our school districts, one of the things we've really tried to focus on is social emotional learning. We made a commitment to this before the pandemic, and when the pandemic hit, last year we had about half of our students in school on a daily, every other day. So we didn't have all of our kids, and we came back together this year. We saw the impact this has had on the social emotional side of things for our children. And one of the things we worked on is to focus on that social emotional learning. And every day we have something called morning meeting in the East Moline School District where our teachers spend about 20 minutes with their kids. And it's just that conversation about life and just reconnecting from the day before or that weekend and just checking in to see how they're doing. And we want to know how they're doing at home, and because we know that the more we take an interest in them and work on that social emotional side of their well-being, we know it'll pay dividends in the school because they'll be able to talk about their feelings and be able to self-regulate rather than be upset, because we know that our kids right now and the adults, I don't want to give that away either, our teachers and our staff, they're all hurting right now. And but that morning meeting and that really connecting with the social emotional learning of our students has been a big win. And I don't know that we'd have made this push as fast as we did had that pandemic not hit.
That's awesome. In my role at United Way, I often talk to people who have benefited from the support that we provide through the community. So I've heard some of the stories from kids, what's happening in families, and from teachers. They're shouldering a lot. Listening to those stories is heavy a lot of times. So, Michelle, what keeps you motivated and gets you up in the morning?
That's a great question. I love what I do. I have been blessed to be in this profession for 27 years. And there is no greater joy than being with our students and listening to them share stories about how they didn't want to come to school today, but because of Mrs. Smith or whoever their teacher is, they knew she wanted them there and that was important to her. Watching them succeed, not just in the classroom academically, but being around our students who are performing in orchestra concerts or on the basketball court, whatever that is. It's just watching just the pure joy of students being together, learning from each other, just keeps me going. And our just tireless staff that works our amazing staff that works tirelessly to ensure that, as Joe said earlier, every student gets exactly what they need. The hours that they put in, the sacrifices that they make, they too are parents, many of them, and that push and pull between making sure my students in the classroom have absolutely everything they need, but having some left over for my own family. I love it. It's the greatest gift that we get to help that next generation out in the workforce be successful, and I couldn't think of a better job to do.
So, Reggie, how long have you been in the education field?
Wow, I'm really telling my age. About 32 years.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
How about you, TJ?
21.
21 years.
Yeah, 21 years.
Yeah. You were a teacher for a long time before you became a superintendent. So what made you want to be a teacher?
Well, I'll never forget the day I decided to become a teacher. I went in, declared my major, and I can still tell you when I walked out of that hall what they were making across the way for lunch that day.
What was it?
It was taco, some kind of taco. And I'll tell you, being an educator is not something you do, it's something that you are. And so when you make the choice to become an educator, you're always an educator. And the educators that I'm around on a daily basis, that's what they're doing. They're making a difference all the time. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose to become an educator. And there's no greater profession than being a teacher. And in today's society, it's never more necessary to have high-quality teachers and educators and staff members in our schools.
That's right. It takes a village, that's for sure.
Sure does.
So, Reggie, what are you most proud of being a superintendent? In particular, you came to the Quad Cities shortly before COVID. What have you been most proud about during the last 2 to 3 years?
Well, for me, I know, when we talk about facilities and maintenance and buildings, I mean, nothing makes a superintendent more proud than to see new buildings go up or to see new renovations and things, because you think about not so much what you're doing to your buildings or what you're moving into, the next year, the new generations, new times of year. You really think about how it's going to impact your students, what they'll get a chance to experience. And as we continue to move forward with differences in social media and technology, everything's moving forward, becoming more challenging. The more that we can do for students is it's key. It's vital for them to have success. It's all about exposure. So for me, it's anything we can do with our buildings. I've been proud and excited about that. But then also just getting the opportunity to give students more voice. We know that there are leaders. We know that there are social media experts, and having the opportunities now to hear them more. When I visit a high school and I go and I hear students in a leadership class, to hear what they're thinking and what their ideas are, it really makes me proud to know that I think we're going to be in great hands.
Oh, that's awesome. Speaking of your students and during, in particular, COVID, is there one thing, or what is the one thing that stands out, one memory that you maybe were discouraged and that lifted you up and inspired you in your schools? Can either one of you think of one thing?
Well, about 1,000.
Right,
But
trying to narrow it down.
I think the pandemic was very discouraging when it first started. But I'll tell you, we all watched our educators adjust, adapt, teaching lessons from their living room, reaching out to students, being engaged with students and families in a brand new way that nobody ever thought of. It forced us to be more digital. And if you think about where do our students live, what are they engaging in, and it's more of a digital environment. So it really pushed us in a fast forward mode to engaging with our students in the realm that they're most comfortable with. And so while it's very difficult to change the modality of which you educate students, it's also the next step that education's going into. So while it is very difficult to manage an in-person and an online universe and students having the ability to go back and forth, our teachers, staff members rallied around that concept, built avenues for students to be successful in ways that we didn't even dream of in a matter of 6 months. And so when you think about where we started and where we are now, it's lining things up for the future. And like Reggie was saying, now we're changing our facilities to that, to match that. And I was very inspired by hearing him say that, because that's our next step as well. Looking at our facilities, being more collaborative. Are there spaces where you can collaborate and then jump on a virtual environment with somebody at John Deere or other places in the area to provide an experience that wouldn't normally be there? And so entering the pandemic and coming out of it, we're a completely different education system. And the next 10 years will be very telling for how we move forward with schools in the future.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question, Reggie. If you think forward, let's think short term, so 2 to 5 years. What do you think education is going to look like?
One, I know that the technology component is not going away. So as much as, we may talk about remote learning, we may talk about how we're able to either do synchronous or asynchronous learning at home. I see us really becoming, adapting our skills and becoming more comfortable with technology. One, because we have to be, but then two, it's really going to force us to be more creative in continuing on meeting kids' needs at school, at home. Consider education 24 hours. Where there's that availability and opportunity to reach kids when needed. I definitely see our school districts, not just thinking about the college component, which is what we really think about. But now we know that our job is to prepare students for college, career, and life. And so I see in the next 5 years, with everything we've been doing around, getting them prepared to go to college if that is their choice, I now see more school districts, including ours, having those opportunities for career and technical education, utilizing some of the resources that may be in our communities more to give our kids hands-on experiences. So we want them to know that in spite of COVID and the impact it's had, we're still going to continue to move forward and prepare you for everything you need in life. And I just see in this next 5 years, there's going to be they always say that, the newest jobs or the upcoming jobs out there haven't been created yet. And I know that our kids, they've probably already started to think about what's going to be next. It's going to be some hands-on things. It's going to be technology-based. They're going to be doing it in their living rooms and in their basements and on the basketball courts and such. But I just see so many opportunities for what children can become and want to be. And we get a chance to help them become what they want to be, not what we want them to be.
Oh, that's inspiring, Reggie. I was honored to meet a young man. His name was Jeremy, and he was 15 years old, and he told me his experience with COVID. He has 2 younger siblings at home, and his father wasn't living in the home. His mom worked full-time. It was his responsibility to help get his 2 younger siblings through their homework on a day-to-day basis. Over time, it was too much for Jeremy to handle. He stopped participating, and when kids get behind, they're more likely to drop out. And luckily for Jeremy, he got connected to one of United Way's partner agencies and got a tutor, some counseling, and got back on track in school. But Jeremy's one of many, many kids that have been in similar situations. So when you hear those stories and the responsibilities that you carry for your teachers and the thousands of students, what gives you hope about the future?
Well, for me, it's 100% our students and our staff. Last night at our board meeting, we started incorporating student voice in our committees of the whole meeting. This student board member that was there last night stood up and represented the student body for Davenport Community School District like I've never seen before. And she was advocating. She knows where her classmates are. She knows the current issues that we were talking about. And despite what we hear about this generation of students, how they're disengaged, they're not. They're engaged. They want a better future for themselves. Many of our younger students only know school through a pandemic lens. So the hope that our educators are going to continue to work with our students through that. If you're a second grader, you've never had a normal year of school. So the hope that our educators are going to continue to push through this pandemic, the resources that we are putting in place to close the gap for our students, like you mentioned, are allowing us to pilot initiatives that will be here after the pandemic. We've learned so much about how to reach students that are struggling, at-risk youth, and to utilize all of our resources to extend. So really, the dollars that we have that were allocated to us, we're looking at that as a way to invest in the future and to implement programs that we've learned. All educators are trying to take this terribly difficult time right now and see it as an opportunity to grow. And make no mistake, right now, all educators are trying to get through this. It's incredibly difficult on all levels of school, as it is with all levels of the community. But what gives me hope is that we have learned an immense amount of information about the best ways to move forward. And so that gives me hope as we move forward, because we have learned so much through the pandemic.
Yeah. My last question for you, Reggie, is, I follow you on social media, Twitter. You have a great following and clearly have a great rapport with your students. What gives you hope?
Well, I'm a servant leader. Everything that I do in life is to impact someone else, because I've always had people that have helped me, get from being that small little African-American boy to where I'm at today. Could not have done it by myself, and I've had so many people that have poured into me. So, when you talk about servant leadership, resiliency always comes up. And we always talk about how our students, regardless of what grade level they're in, they are resilient. We continue to make changes and adjustments. Guess what? They pivot, they jump over hoops, they go through hoops, and they continue to be successful. And so for me, what gives me hope is that, in times of need, such as now, even though people are tired, they're stressed out, they're frustrated, in the time of need, people step up. Organizations step up. I look at teachers, we don't talk about their resiliency. They're doing this right along with their students and families. They're doing this while raising children, their families. So what gives me hope is that there's always organizations and people from our inner selves. We're servants. We're going to give more. We're going to do what it takes to be successful. People have forgotten that in this whole pandemic piece, it's been someone told me it's been 100 weeks.
Oh, wow.
We just had 100 days of school. Now we're close to 100 weeks and such. And that's a short amount of time if you think about, a number of years. But we're going to get a hold of this. We've already started to make adjustments to continue moving forward and being successful. And so what gives me hope is that every one of us is a servant leader. It's internal. And we want to see the best for our students, our families, our communities in the future. And to know that we have individuals that step out there. Individuals, organizations, United Way and others that are vested in ensuring that, students and everyone get what they need. So we are a nation of servants. We're servant leaders. And, just have to give us time. It might not happen when you expect it to, but we're going to get there. We're going to have success.
That's awesome. You make me think that the Quad Cities could be the very best place to raise kids. So education has been a victim of the pandemic, but it's also the solution going forward. We've worked together with the Education Council to identify the impact of COVID, in particular on reading proficiency. And we're looking at that third grade level. Brian, will you talk to us about why is reading proficiency so important? And at that time.
When you look at third grade, it is truly that shift of learning when it looks at teaching kids to learn and then reading for the love of learning and to learn from there. And I think third grade is a pivotal part. Before that, it's all the systemic ways of teaching kids distinctly how to read. And when they hit that third grade and wanting, as I said, to mention the love of learning, that's what takes us to the future. That's what opens up our minds to think creatively, to have an imagination. And if kids at third grade are starting to be able to comprehend what they're learning, hopefully that love sparks in them, which we know will help them set them up for the future and all the skills that they need to be professionals someday.
Reggie, we have learned that about 70% of third graders in the Quad Cities aren't reading proficiently. And so we have an initiative we're rolling out. It's called Read United QC. And we are committed to recruiting 500 people willing to spend 30 minutes a week with a student to help them learn to read. What needs to happen and how will that volunteer know that they've been successful?
Well, wow. To hear 500, that's great to have 500 additional sets of hands across our district. Many hands make light work. I think that in working with our students, what needs to happen is, we've heard of just reading to students periodically. We normally will do it on a specific day to just go in and read. But what needs to happen is now we get a chance to take that a little bit on steroids. We get a chance to build relationships with students because that is a true part of learning. Build that relationship and then get a chance to have a little bit of a focus, knowing that when students read, big thing we want to happen from that is they need to learn how to comprehend, have some interest in what they're reading, being able to share a little bit about what they've read, and to infer what they think may happen or what they'd like to see happen. So I think that in this program, having so many visitors from so many different walks of life, it'll be great for them to know the purpose for this is, one, to provide that exposure that a number of our students don't receive, and two, to build some relationships, to help build their confidence in reading. Because as Brian said earlier with third grade, when children have the confidence of reading and being able to decode words and read for the love of reading, it carries them throughout the rest of their lives, and that's something we need daily. How they'll know they had success? Well, one, if you're meeting with students week to week, you get a chance to just self-gauge from that confidence that you see every week that you go back in. When you're able to ask questions about what you read the last time and what they'd like to hear and see moving forward. We know that the academic piece will be there, touching base with teachers to find a little bit more about how they're doing academically. But you will know the success component of how you made that child feel. The questions that they ask, not just about the story you're reading, but the questions they may ask about you or the relationship you built. And all of those pieces there build in confidence that our students will need to be successful and grow that love for reading.
Yeah, it sounds like kids can be exposed to whole new worlds of different experiences and careers and lives of other people.
Yes.
So we currently have 14 sites that people can choose from to read. They're located all over the Quad Cities. Brian, you're in Pleasant Valley, and Reggie represents Rock Island, Milan. Brian, talk about your passion and commitment and the things you've shared before about it doesn't matter where a child lives.
When you get an education, it's about educating all students and creating a community of learners. And I think when you look at a program like this, it's not just about Pleasant Valley students or Rock Island students. It's about the entire Quad Cities. We become stronger when we're better together and working together. And I think a program like this, being across all schools, across the Quad Cities, as the ultimate goal, if we can reach all kids, we know that the future is bright for our kids if we can have them successfully reading by third grade on grade level. So we must come together and break down the barriers, the city lines, and just say what's best for our community. This is a great program that's great for all kids across all buildings.
I'm excited to get in the classroom and read to a child. I know that our volunteers, we are focused on struggling readers. Reggie, can you describe what does that mean? What level could a volunteer expect?
Sure. Well, what we'll be trying to do is give them students who are, if you want to say that they're on the bubble, we want those students who are right at that point of being confident readers, but still it won't be your least struggling student where they have to learn all of your phonemic awareness and phonics and how to comprehend and such. Those are the building blocks that'll be taught by the professionals, by the teachers in the classroom. So we have those students who they'll need that little bit of confidence. They can definitely decode words and tell you what they're interested in, but these are those students who need that additional push. The teachers will be able to share those students who can still show some independent reading, but that exposure piece will take them to that next level where the confidence is evident every time they pick up a booklet or every time they're on screen reading something. And that piece is important for students too, because academics is about relationships, but also confidence. And the more confident you are in reading, it means that you won't be challenged to pick up different types of reading, regardless of the interests, your interests, or if it's about sports, or if it's about something technical like engineering. You can confidently read. There are no barriers on what you are interested in reading.
Yeah, that's exciting. We are working with struggling readers, and we're looking at our volunteers will be paired with students from preschool all the way through third grade. And, one thing we haven't talked about here towards the end of our conversation is really the heroes, and those are our teachers. And so we consider this a gift that we're lining up behind our teachers to show our support. But what else can people in our community do to show their appreciation and that our teachers are valued here in the Quad Cities?
I'll begin by saying our teachers are phenomenal. What they do for kids every single day, when you go and watch, even as a PK through 3 to an AP class at high school, teachers have a gift. And that's why they go into this great profession. And I think when you look at what we can do to show that support, there's many things that volunteers can do in our community. This is a great example. Come into the classroom and read and help our teachers. There's other organizations that people can always look towards, whether it's junior achievement, or other community groups, could be maybe going through the PTA organizations, but encouraging people to reach out to their schools and say, what can we do? There's time, there's talents, there's monetary support, whatever it might be. Again, bringing a community together shows that we're behind our kids, we're behind our teachers, and we appreciate what they do every single day in this great profession.
That's sweet. Reggie, I'm going to give you the last word. If you had your teachers, you had 10 teachers sitting around you today, what would you say to them and that you would want the community to know?
Well, I would first just tell them that you are so amazing. I don't think people think about everything that goes into just a daily lesson, just getting yourself up in the morning and coming into a work environment where you know that it's not just going to be an easy flow through the day. There's going to be challenges that arise. There's going to be positive times, and there's going to be, again, lots of challenges that force you to be able to pivot and adjust as needed. I would say thank you. I know that thank yous, you don't oftentimes hear them, but please know that the children that you're supporting and the families who don't get a chance to come in and tell you that, just know that inside you are, those parents are so proud of you. They send their thank you by sending their children every day, because they're sending you the best kids that they have. They're not keeping the good ones at home. They're sending you the best that they have. And it would be, again, you are amazing, and thank you. That's just how I feel about them. There's no way that education, regardless of what level, K through 12, even college level, we forget they're teachers too.
That's right.
Amazing work.
Yeah. Well, thank you and all the superintendents for joining me today. And God bless you and all of our educators for taking care of our kids. Our region is at a pivotal time of renewal and growth. And when I talk to people across sectors and communities and with differing views, the one thing that we can agree on is that to grow our community, it will take involvement from everyone. Small acts by many people can absolutely be leveraged into huge impact. I hope you'll consider joining us to read United QC. To learn more, go to unitedwayqc.org.